Hey guys! Last week was crazy busy, so I didn't have time to put a video together, but I have been doing as much research as I can in preparation for the Grams video, which, fingers crossed, will be going up next Friday. But while I was researching, I came across something I thought was really interesting on the Wikia pages. Has anyone else noticed the continuity error section on the pages where they list things like, plot holes and filming mistakes from the series? I have to admit, when I saw that, I kind of forgot about the Grimm's video there for a moment. I was just like, ooh, filming mistakes. That sounds like a really fun idea for a video. So this week, we're going to be looking at some of the filming mistakes that made it into the actual episodes of Charmed. Keep in mind that whoever wrote the Wikia pages caught most of these. I did not. I only caught 2, and I'll make sure to mention what those are. But yeah, just want to give them credit. I'm not the one who noticed most of these, but I just think they're really interesting. I love stuff like this. So I figured the best way to go about it would be to go episode by episode, starting with the pilot, Something Wicked This Way Comes, which I can say it. I can say Something Wicked This Way Comes, but in my head I hear Something Wicked This Way Comes because of that song. But before we get into the actual mistakes, I just wanted to share something I learned while looking at all of these that I thought was actually kind of sweet. Apparently, Eric Scott Woods, the actor who played Jeremy, was uncomfortable saying the word bitch, and so instead of forcing him to say it, like I feel like a lot of shows would have done, they actually dubbed it in for him using another actor's voice. So that's why every time Jeremy says the word bitch in the episode, it sounds exactly the same.
I'll get you, you bitch. Cool parlor trick, bitch. Cool parlor trick, bitch.
Like I said, in a weird way, I actually think that's kind of sweet that a guy who played a character who was an obvious threat to women was uncomfortable even calling them names in real life. So, it just goes to show that you can't judge a person by the character they play, even if it's hard. But yeah, anyway, just wanted to share that. And with that being said, let's jump into the actual errors. So, towards the beginning of the episode, Piper is running up the stairs of the manor with a black and white umbrella, but when she enters the house and hangs her things by the door, the umbrella now has a floral pattern instead. Apparently this was due to the episode combining scenes from both versions of the pilot, but I thought it was really interesting how I somehow never noticed that at all. And another thing I somehow never noticed was that when Piper returns home and Jeremy creeps on the girls later at night, the tree outside their home is completely bare. But the very next morning, the tree is covered in leaves and flowers, along with all of the trees in the background. So it's like, what? Episode 2, I've Got You Under My Skin. When Stefan gives Phoebe the address of his modeling shoot, you can clearly see that the address is already written on the napkin before he gives it to her, and he even pretends to write underneath the address, but when he gives the napkin to her, there's only the one line with nothing written underneath it. Also, this isn't a mistake so much as something that always just struck me as odd, but in the very next scene, Phoebe runs into Piper and asks if Piper sees the guy at the bar staring at her, and Piper says,
"A lot of guys at the bar are staring at you."
But you can clearly see that literally nobody else is looking at her. So it's like, why even have that line in there then, And another potential mistake is when Phoebe is handing out the trays of food at the church. We see her hand off the first tray, but when the scene cuts back, there are 2 trays already missing. So it could be another mistake. Phoebe made a slight movement during a different take, so maybe that was her handing off the second tray, but doesn't seem likely, and it definitely doesn't explain why once all 4 trays have been taken, we don't see Phoebe close the door of the thingy, but when it's seen in the next shot, the door's already closed. Thank you for not morphing. At the party in the beginning, Fritz slithers up to Andy to bother him about parking tickets, which Prue takes as her cue to leave, but you can see in the next shot that Fritz is with his siblings instead of standing next to Andy. And in the scene where Victor visits Prue, we can see her necklace, and it's on the shorter side. But in the next scene where Prue is telling Piper and Phoebe what happened, the necklace just seems to keep getting longer and longer, and it's definitely the same day since Prue is still wearing the same outfit. And then, don't know how I never noticed this, but when one of the shapeshifters tries to steal a book, Prue gets home before they can get out, so they shapeshift into Andy so they don't blow their cover. And while they're talking, you can see a man off to the right in the sunroom who is bouncing his leg. I just think it's funny how I somehow never noticed that guy. And then later in the episode, when Phoebe is looking through the book for something to help, the book flips itself and you can tell that there are several duplicate pages. And also when the sisters use the spell at the end, Cinda and Fritz are standing away from Victor and Marshall, posing as Victor. But when the shot cuts back to them, Cinda, Fritz, and Marshall are all standing together on Victor's left. So lots of errors in this episode. And then we have Dead Man Dating. In the scene where Phoebe writes the Chinese characters on her hand, you can see them in the close-up, but then this shot changes to be at an angle, and you can see that the characters are not written on her hand. But when the shot changes back to the close-up, you can see the characters again. Episode 5, Dream Sorcerer, actually has one of the few mistakes I actually noticed for myself, so I was glad it was on the Wikia too. But when Andy and Daryl are investigating Sky's murder, they mention that her apartment is on the ground floor, but it's clearly not. There are no streets, cars, or signs visible like there should be from a ground floor window, and the view of the bay and the Transamerica Pyramid in the background clearly show that they are up much farther than the ground floor. Also, can I please just take a moment to appreciate the irony of the person who decided to cut this in a way where Andy mentions that the apartment is on the ground floor as he passes by a window that clearly shows it's not? The beautiful thing is, it most likely wasn't intentional, but it's still really funny. And then episode 6 was The Wedding from Hell. In this shot, we can clearly see that Prue is still holding her purse, but in the very next scene, she not only no longer has it, but after that, she's holding one of the bags again, and the other one is way over by Elliot, who was on the opposite side of the room. So, yeah. The fourth sister. When Callie appears in the mirror while Phoebe's sleeping, we can see her in the mirror along with Phoebe's bed, but we don't see Phoebe asleep in the bed. We see that the bed is not only empty, but it's actually been made. And then when Prue is looking around Aviva's room at her Aunt Jackie's, she opens the closet and sees all of Aviva's black magic supplies on the floor of the closet. But a few moments later, Aviva has all of the exact same items at the manor. So unless she happened to be carrying around an exact replica of everything in her closet in her backpack that she carried with her, down to the bright white skull, there is just no way that those items got from one place to another so fast. The truth is out there, and it hurts. In the beginning of the episode, Piper, Phoebe, and Prue are waiting in line at the cinema, but Piper gets a call from her boss to come into work, and Phoebe decides to walk her to her car when Phoebe has a premonition about a murder, and so they run after the cop cars. Phoebe and Piper both had a major head start on Prue, who had waited in line to keep their spot, so there's just no way they should have all arrived at the crime scene at pretty much the same time. The witch is back. When Prue releases Matthew from the locket at the start of the episode, he copies her power and telekinetically pins her against the wall with a chair. When she moves away, in scenes from the front, she has her hand on her stomach where the chair hit her, but in scenes from behind, both of her hands are down at her sides. Episode 10, Wicked Envy. In the beginning, Prue and Phoebe walk in on Piper and Leo having fun, and Piper panics and freezes Leo when she spots her sisters, whose right hand is clearly touching the door frame. But when Piper returns and the freeze wears off, his hand is now in front of the doorway instead. Feats of Clay. When Piper freezes the restaurant towards the end of the episode, you can see that people behind the sisters are still moving, even though they're supposed to be frozen. The Wendigo. To stop the bracelet from being sold at auction, Prue telekinetically moves the auction paddles out of the bidder's hands to prevent them from bidding. The second person that raises the paddle is a man with white hair whose paddle says 130, but when Prue moves it away from him, the number is now 145 and someone else has the paddle that reads 130. And in the scene where the Wendigo rips Andy's shirt, you can see that it's ripped almost all the way to the top, but in the next shot, you can see that it's not ripped anymore, or at least ripped up that far. Episode 13, From Fear to Eternity. In the beginning of the episode, the girls are talking in the conservatory, and Piper and Phoebe go to exit the room via the dining room. But when the shot changes, they're clearly exiting the conservatory via the living room instead, which, if you know the layout of the manor, is rather odd considering the two doors are at opposite ends of the conservatory. And then, towards the end of the episode, when Prue goes into the swimming pool, you can see that her bra strap is white, but when she climbs out of the pool, she now has a black strap instead. Also, what happened to her jacket? Secrets and Guys. In the scene where Phoebe and Leo are at Quake, Phoebe's arms are both laying on the table in front of her, but in the next shot, they're both raised in front of her. It's a small thing, but at this point, it looks like there's going to be a mistake for every episode, and I didn't want to leave Secrets and Guys out, so yeah. Episode 15 is There a Woogie in the House? In the beginning of the episode, there's an aftershock that causes a vase full of flowers to fall and break, but just a few moments later we see Prue putting the flowers back into the vase, which is apparently no longer broken. At first I thought it might be two different bouquets and two different vases, since they do seem to have a fair few flowers around the manor, but if you look at the pattern of the rug around the broken flowers, you can see the same rug behind Prue and Phoebe as she puts the flowers back in the vase, suggesting that they are one and the same. And then when Piper and Prue get thrown out of the house by Phoebe, Prue is wearing the black choker she wore to the dinner party. They spend all night outside, and in the morning, Prue is wearing a different necklace. But a few moments later, the black choker is back. Say that 5 times fast. The black choker is back. The black choker is back. The black choker is black. Yeah, no, that's not happening. I tried. Which proves it anyway. When Prue leaves to go upstairs and cast a spell to multiply her powers, Piper's hair is down. But in the next scene, when she and Phoebe run up to the attic after Prue, her hair is now suddenly up in a ponytail. That 70s episode. In the beginning of the episode, when Piper freezes Nicholas, he says that he knows she froze him because he only heard 5 chimes on the clock when the time is noon. But when the girls are backing away from him, you can see the aforementioned clock in the background, and it actually reads 12:25, so it makes no sense for the clock to have been announcing 12 p.m. at 25 after. And in the scene where Graham sends the girls flying out of the manor, especially if you slow it down, you can see that Alyssa is actually smiling and saying something to Holly. And when the girls head inside the restaurant, you can see a man in a blue shirt and a woman with long brown hair who are starting to leave the restaurant. But when Phoebe runs in after her sisters later on, the couple is back at the bar. And then this is when I actually noticed that has always got on my nerves just a little bit. It's when Piper has little Piper freeze Andy. She shuts the door to stop them from freezing along with Andy, but as you can see from the scenes, there is absolutely no way Piper had time to close that door.
We got it. Little Andy Trudeau is so cute. All right. Ready? Freeze him. Okay, cool.
It's more than instantaneous. In one shot, she barely has her hand on the door, and in the next, it's already closed and she's opening it again. Like, just... And then episode 18 is when bad warlocks turn good. Again, a bit of a small one, but when Prue and Brendan are riding horses, you can easily see it's their stunt doubles, which, you know, is a little bit odd since there's a lot of ways they could have filmed the shot to avoid that, like shooting it from behind or having hats that obscured their faces from the camera or just, you know, something. And then episode 19 is Out of Sight, and in the beginning of the episode, Prue sees a Grimlock trying to kidnap a little boy and runs after them, but he gets away with the little boy before she can stop him. But when she catches up to the spot where they disappeared, you can clearly see that she's in a forest surrounded by pine trees and that the sky is overcast. But in the very next shot, you can see that there's barely any trees at all, the sun is shining, and Prue is standing next to an open field. Like, I swear this is one of the most bizarre inclusions on the list. How did someone not notice that? Anyway, later in the episode, Phoebe returns home, and as you can see, she is neither wearing nor carrying a backpack. Yet when she enters the manor, she is wearing a backpack. And then when Eric Lohman shoves a camera in Prue's face and forces her to admit she's a witch, I really couldn't stand that guy, by the way, but you can see some of the set and a member of the crew on the left side of the footage. And then episode 20 was The Power of Two. This is a really quick one at the end of the episode, but in one shot, Phoebe is holding the bag of cotton balls, but in the next, she's holding a tampon box and is just now pulling the cotton balls out from the bag. The next episode was Love Hurts, and in the episode when Prue shoots the crossbow at Alec, he orbs out and the arrow hits the wall behind him. But in the next shot, the arrow is gone. And if you watch Daisy's arm in this scene, you can see the difference between the two shots that were spliced together for the orbing transition. And then we have the last episode of the season, Deja Vu all over again. In the scene where Andy dies, you can clearly see that it's his stunt double that goes flying across the room. And then when Phoebe asks if Prue's okay, Piper says that she's out cold, but if you watch Holly's mouth, she's actually saying she's okay, not she's out cold.
Yeah, she's out cold.
She's out cold.
And at the very end of the episode, when Piper and Phoebe are in the kitchen, Phoebe's hair is up in a bun. But in the next shot, when they join Prue outside, Phoebe has a completely different hairstyle. And not only that, but Piper was also wearing a cross necklace in the kitchen, but when they go outside, she's now wearing a butterfly necklace instead. The show doesn't tell us how much time has passed between the two shots, but given the fact that they're still wearing the same outfits and Prue says that they'd better go get ready for work, it implies that it's still early morning and there's no reason the girls would have just changed a necklace or a hairstyle and not their whole outfit. But Anyway, those are all of the mistakes from season 1 that I thought it would be fun to share. Are there any filming mistakes that you caught that weren't on this list? Please let me know, and also please let me know if you'd like to see more of these in the future, because honestly this was so fun and I'd love to do more in the future. And there are 7 more seasons we could cover, so yeah, with that being said, thank you so much for watching, and as always, I hope you have a wonderful day or night wherever you are. Bye!